So this is Frederick Guarino from the Peace Innovation Institute at The Hague. ClimateActionWorks is the organizer and convener of this gathering, and we're very pleased to welcome Dr. Asaad Shamseldin from the University of Auckland in New Zealand, where it's already the future. It's already Wednesday for you. And you'll be talking about the impacts on Sudan of the damming of the transboundary River Nile. So please, we're very much looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Frederick Guarino, and it's my pleasure to be here with you to present to you the impacts on some of the dams on the River Nile and in terms of their impact on Sudan. So in this presentation, I'm not going to discuss all the impact of all dams on Sudan, but I'm going to select 3 dams. One of them is Sinar Dam, and this is actually built within Sudan. And also I will select 2 other dams, that is the Aswan High Dam Aswan and the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, that is GERD. And these are actually 2 dams which are built outside the border of Sudan, but they do have impacts on Sudan. Okay, this slide here trying to explain some of the impact on Sinar Dam, and this is basically the map of Sudan and also some of the neighboring country. And this is basically number 7 here. This is basically the Sinar Dam. So the Sinar Dam is basically located in the middle of Sudan. So this dam is actually a very, very small dam, and it's actually constructed in 1925, and it has a capacity which is less than 1 billion. So the main purpose of this dam was to irrigate the Jazeera scheme, and the Jazeera scheme here is located between the Blue Nile and here on the White Nile. And the main purpose was there is to provide cotton for the textile industry in the UK, because this dam was built during when Britain was actually occupying Sudan. This dam actually has contributed positively to Sudan in terms of poverty alleviation. It's also allowed the resettlement of people, which allows the government, to provide services in terms of health and education. And however, this dam has a lot of negative impacts. One of them is that it's increased the incidence of waterborne disease such as malaria, and also it brought new diseases or such as like schistosomiasis. And also, there are also other diseases which are actually related to the use of fertilizer and pesticides. And these are actually cause cancer to many people within the area. Another thing which has been associated with the construction of this dam is that in order for the government, at that time, the British government, to develop the Jazeera scheme, they have to acquire land from the locals. So they went to a rental model, and that is maybe at that time the rental was okay, was acceptable to the local, and this arrangement has continued until today. But however, there is a big problem at the moment, in the sense that the rental is actually very, very low, so which is actually unfair on the landowner. So they get virtually no rent because the rent is very, very small, and a lot of them, they opted not to collecting it because it is very, very low. The second dam that I am going to talk about, which is the High Dam Aswan, which is actually here, is located in the southern part of Egypt. And this dam the construction was completed in 1971, and it has a capacity of 162 billion meter cube, which is like almost twice or roughly twice the mean annual flow of the River Nile. And as you can see here from this picture here, because this is a very big dam, due to the what the storage of water is actually, it has actually created a lake. And this lake in Egypt is known as Lake Nasser, and here in Sudan is known as Lake Nubia. And this land here this land is traditionally is the land of Nubians, and the Nubians has been living here for a long period of time. And they are indigenous people, and actually they are minorities. So they live beside the Nile, and their civilization is a very ancient civilization, which has been there for thousands of years. So as a result of this dam, displacement of the Nubian has taken a place, both in Sudan and also in Egypt. Likewise, because here this is an ancient civilization, there have been a lot of historic or archaeological sites, and this is actually has been destructed. Some of them has been destructed due to the formation of this lake, but however, some of them has been rescued and moved to higher land. This photos here shows one of the cities which has been inundated by the water coming from the lake of Lake Nubian in Sudan. And this city here is Wadi Halfa, and it's just as the border here between Sudan and Egypt. So as you can see here, this is very, very old photos, and this is a photo of like a ship in the Nile, and this is a photo of a hotel, and this is how their city will look like, and this is some of the farming or agricultural activities taking place on the River Nile. So for Nubians, this is basically their capital, and it is very, very dear to their heart, and they call it, for them, is just like Paris. And as a result of the high dam of Aswan, this city has been submerged with water, and then the Nubian has to move away. So this is like the Paris of Nubians, and it's very dear to their heart. And if you imagine that is, if you tomorrow you ask the French to leave Paris, what will happen? So this is, of course, it will create a lot of opposition, it create a lot of resentment, and it might never happen. But for the Nubians, they have actually been forced, to leave this land. And so the Nubians has been moved from here, from the land here, like from their border here near Egypt. They have been moved here to to a land here actually near the border with Eritrea and Ethiopia. And however, this displacement of the Nubian has accompanied by demonstration. There is a lot of opposition about it. Then again, it's not clear why those Nubian has been moved here rather than being resettled around the area that is they know. Also, there is, in my view, this displacement could be avoided if they reduce the size of the dam. So that is again shows that there have been lack of consultation with this community. So they have been here relocated to unfamiliar land. And this settlement or this displacement has caused them a lot of agony. Some of them have suffered from mental disease. It has brought also new diseases that they are not familiar with, that is malaria and schistosomiasis, and also it's also brought a lot of kidney and liver disease. Likewise, the houses that they have built, the roof is made of asbestos, and also asbestos was used also in the water supply. And this is actually has resulted in high mortality among the elderly people. So as a result, many of the Nubians have, after a few years, they have left this settlement. Some of them has went to other cities, and some of them has returned to the land that is they are familiar with, that is near Wadi Halfa. Again, so some of them has retained here because for them, Wadi Halfa and the neighboring region is known as the land of paradise. This is actually has created a lot of resentment towards Egypt. And however, the agony still continue because here, as a result of this lake, this has resulted of a lot of sedimentation, and actually it had created new fertile land. And at the moment, they want to utilize this land, but however, they have a big dispute with the government in terms who own the land. So their agony did not finish. They have been displaced. They are minority people. They are indigenous people. They have been actually displaced from the land they know to a land that is they don't know. They couldn't climatize. They couldn't live in it. So they have returned back. They want to build their life. And now they have been told that land is no longer belong to you. Now we talk about the GERD dam, and this dam has been very controversial, and it is a very large dam, and it is the largest hydroelectric project in Africa. And this dam here is actually located at a very, very short distance from the border of Sudan, and it is constructed on the Blue Nile, and which is one of the major tributary of the main line. This is just some information about the dam. It expects to generate around 150 megawatt, and it has what they call it, capacity of 74 billion meter cube, and that is basically around maybe 1.5 times mean annual flow of the Blue Nile. So again here, this dam, which is known as Grand Ethiopian Resources Dam, or GERD, it can actually, because it's due to capacity, it can hold the entire annual volume of the Nile. Again here, what I am trying to say, if you look at the Blue Nile catchment, this is kind of like a water balance. You will find that is the flow which is entering Sudan is around 18% of the mean annual runoff. And here, this catchment is characterized by high evaporation, which is around actually 66%. So 66%, this is actual evaporation. And here, water retained in Ethiopia is 16%. I think this water balance is very important because here the Ethiopian, when they construct the dam, they are saying that is they don't have any share of the water of the Nile. And what they mean by that one, they don't have a share of the flow which is coming actually to a dam. But however, they do have, if you consider the water balance holistically, there is 16% which is retained in Ethiopia, and also there is actual evapotranspiration, which provide a lot of ecosystem services. Again, one of the controversy about this dam is its size, and there have been some studies. One of them is by Abdelazim et al. In 2020, which suggests that is the size of the dam could be actually reduced in a significant way without affecting the hydropower generation. So, which means that is this dam could operate with lower storage and without any significant reduction in the hydropower generation. Again, this dam has very low efficiency in terms of hydropower production. I think the efficiency is around 33. Again, this dam has been very controversial because sometimes there is a very tense relationship between Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia. And one of the controversial issues is about the dam safety. And again, there have been, what they call it, there have been reports by panel of experts, which has been commissioned about by the 3 countries. And this report has raised a lot of question about the dam safety, and also it has recommended certain study to be made in terms of dam break analysis. Likewise, some of the Ethiopians themselves, they noted that there is a possible fault line in the dam area. Likewise, there is a lot of political tension, and actually Ethiopia is refusing to share the dam safety documents with Sudan. One of the studies which is actually missing is the dam break analysis, and will try to analyze what will happen if the dam fail. And this has been addressed in a number of studies, and one of them this is one of the studies here by Suleiman, and this is one of the studies that I have personally conducted. And actually you can see that the results are very, very similar. And as you can see here, if the dam fails, as you can see here, it will inundate large area in Sudan. This is over 100 kilometers. This is the White Nile, this is the Blue Nile, and this is the White Nile. And this is actually the water depths are at different locations. So here, if the dam failed, the water depth here in the capital of Khartoum can be in excess of 10 meters. Again, this study is very important because it will contribute to the evaluation of risk, and also it will enable to set up of emergency plan. Likewise, some newspaper has conducted a survey among the Sudanese people, and actually 74% of the people who are actually being interviewed, they are actually fearing the collapse of the dam. Then the question here, which will pose itself, are these risks acceptable? And also, I would like to note that there have been no public consultation with regard to this issue in Sudan. Another point which has been actually used by the Sudanese government to propagate this dam, or to get public acceptance of the dam, they are saying that this dam will enable Sudan, the GERD dam will enable Sudan to use its share from the Nile water according to a 1959 agreement with Egypt. We have to remember that is the resettlement or displacement of the Nubian has created a lot of resentment towards Egypt. So this resentment has been actually used in trying to get public acceptance of this dam in Sudan. However, this information is not correct, because there have been so many studies which has shown that the Sudan is capable of, or has utilized its share of the water Nile without the existence of the GERD dam. And this is basically a recent study. It's a master's thesis from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it has shown that the Sudan withdrawal from the Nile water are close to consuming its entire share of the Nile water. So for the government of Sudan to come, or the Ethiopian government to say that this dam, it will enable Sudan to utilize its all share, that is actually only a propaganda. And the most concerning matter for me, from a scientific point of view, there have been a large number of studies which are actually promoting that this dam will provide a lot of economical benefit to Sudan by utilizing its share from the water Nile. These studies are actually very questionable, because they are based on the wrong assumption, because Sudan has already utilized its share, or capable of utilizing its share from the water of the Nile without the GERD dam. So these studies need to be not to be used, and because they are very questionable, and I have a simple word for it: Bennett. I will skip over that one, and Now I will talk a little bit about the impact of the GERD dam on sediment reduction. And during, it is expected that is after the completion of the dam, of the GERD dam, that is the annual sediment will reduce by 86%. And during the first filling of the GERD dam, that is which occurred in 2020, there have been a reduction in the amount of sediment between 78% or to 87% on some of the stations, which sediments are measured, and this actual measurement are done by the Ministry of Irrigation in Sudan. I will skip over that one. Another impact of the GERD dam, that is, it will significantly change the water regime. This is what you see here. This is the annual flow hydrograph without GERD, and as you can see, after GERD, the flow is almost constant. So it will, this all seasonality, this seasonality will actually disappear. Again, as a result of sediment reduction and also the changes in the water regime or the flow regime, we would expect that is the erosion of the river bank will increase. And again, erosion in general will cause or will pose risk to the water infrastructure, such as dam, bridges, and stuff like that one, which are actually constructed on the Blue Nile and the River Nile. Likewise, it will have impact on groundwater, especially with the changes in the river methodology and with the possible changes, with the possible, what they call it, reduction in the river bed due to erosion. And therefore, we'd expect that is also the groundwater recharge to increase. And in Sudan, there is a strong connectivity between streams and aquifer. One of the other economic impacts of GERD is that will be on agriculture in Sudan. So this is a Gazir scheme. And one of the main feature of this scheme is that sediments from the Nile enter this scheme, and 40% of the sediments which is entering this scheme will end up into the field or into the farm. And again here, the loss of sediments, because sediment every year will renew the fertility. So the loss of sediment here will actually reduce the fertility of the land, and that will actually has implication, because in this case, people need to use fertilizer more. Sudan does not manufacture fertilizer. It's being imported. That actually is going to increase the cost of agriculture, and actually it can make agriculture unprofitable. Another impact also of another impact of the GERD dam on the agriculture in Sudan is that it might increase it, because GERD will change the water quality, and that might cause salinity problem in this big scheme, which is the backbone of Sudanese economy. In this case, in order to deal with it, you have to do a lot of what they call a drainage system to get rid of it, and also you have also to use a lot of water to wash to deal with salinity. Again, this is an example here which shows what has happened in Egypt in terms of use of fertilizer since the construction of High Dam of Aswan. As you can see here, the use of a fertilizer continue to increase over time. Likewise, as a result of the GERD dam, we do expect that it will affect the fish in the Blue Nile and the main River Nile, and we say that the Nile is very rich in terms of fish species, and then there is around 150 species in the River Nile. So we would expect that as a result of GERD dam, there will be decline in the fish amount. Again, this graph here, this is the amount of fish here, and this graph explain what has happened to the fish in the main Nile after the construction of high dam of Aswan. So this is an example. This is a living example from the basin itself to see, just illustrating how big dams will affect the fish species. Again, it will have impact on the forest sector, because those forests exist on the floodplain of the Nile, and these areas will no longer be flooded, and all the habitats like animals, birds, and stuff like that one will be affected. And also this kind of like forest is also, people use it for tourism and recreation purpose, so that sector will also disappear. Again, the GERD dam will affect also traditional agriculture, and as you can see here, there is a lot of agriculture which taking place in the floodplain, and this is actually, it's a very, very traditional agriculture. It's very, very organic. It doesn't, people will not use fertilizer or even pumps to irrigate the waters. They just rely on the moisture in the ground, you know, for the crop to grow. So this kind of agriculture has been practiced for many, many years, and this is basically, it will disappear. So as this is just a rough estimate. As a result of the GERD dam, this half of this traditional agriculture, which is organic and which can actually bring a lot of income to Sudan, will disappear as a result of GERD. Likewise, some of the traditional industries, such as like brick making, which take place adjacent to the Nile, will also disappear. Again, a lack of coordination in the operation of the dam will pose risk to Sudan. This is, you can see, this is a water supply pump or water supply station. And as a result of the filling of the first filling of the, as a result of filling of the GERD dam, there was no water in the Nile, and then for several days, this station was not working and there was no water for people. Likewise, there have been also, people were pointing out the finger at the GERD dam, and they said that has actually contributed to the flood which has happened in Sudan in 2020. Again, at this point, I also would like to mention that one, because GERD dam is a hydropower dam, but however, by linking the operation of the GERD dam to solar and wind power energy, that is, you don't need to store a lot of water, and a lot of water can actually be released to downstream countries. So this is basically a conclusion from a paper which was published in Nature Energy. Another issue, which is actually not featured very largely in the media, is the effect of the GERD dam on indigenous people here, both in Sudan and actually in Ethiopia. So these are basically indigenous people in the Blue Nile Basin, and this area is just near the border of Sudan. And this area here is actually, there have been a lot of conflicts, and these people here, these people who are demonstrating, they are also calling for self-governance. And these people, these are just demonstrating. They are asking the government to compensate them for the effect of the GERD dam, because GERD dam is also has created microclimatic changes. Here also water, because as a result of lack of coordination between Sudan and Ethiopia in terms of the operation of the dam, Sudan is holding a lot of water in a dam here at the border also. It's called the Roseris Dam for a large period of time, and this is actually has prevented people to use the floodplain for agriculture. So those people here are demonstrating. It's not clear how their rights are actually incorporated in the development of the GERD dam. This is also a trouble area, and this is, for me, is also could pose a threat to peace and stability of Sudan. Likewise, we do have the indigenous people here in the Benishangul area, and this is the area where the GERD dam is constructed. And this is basically a photo of demonstration which has taken place at the UN office in Sudan, which has taken here the UN office in Sudan. It's very pleasing to see some of actually the children actually also participating in this demonstration. So here, the people of Benishangul, which are the indigenous people where the dam is constructed, they are facing genocide. Some of them are actually has seek asylum seeking in Sudan, and they have a simple equation. They have a simple equation here. They get down for them. It means Benishangul genocide plus environmental damage. Again, here Benishangul is a very, very special area because this area was actually traditionally it belonged to Sudan, but however in 1902 it has been given by the British to Ethiopia on the premise that is they do not construct any water projects which will affect the flow of the Nile. Again, it is not clear how the rights of these people are incorporated in the development of the land of the GERD dam. Again, if things escalate, this is also might affect the peace and stability in the area. So again, here in summary, this is just what they call it. This is here is sorry. It's just a quote from the Sudanese, the former Sudanese Minister of Irrigation, and it's basically say that is filling the GERD dam without consultation with Sudan will threaten 20 million people. Again, here, the GERD dam will pose serious risk to Sudan in terms of safety, operation and filling, and environmental and socio-economic impacts because, again, when this dam is constructed, no socio-economic and environmental study has been conducted, especially on the downstream country. It affects water security in Sudan and also peace and stability. And if these issues of the GERD dam are not resolved, this will lead to massive migration from Sudan to other countries and also massive displacement of people within Sudan. So this is some of the thoughts for transboundary river. One of them is, this is some of the questions that I have in mind. How do we define acceptable risk for transboundary rivers? How do we conduct a public consultation in transboundary river? How do we protect the right of indigenous people? And again, in the case of the Nile, I say that is, especially in the case of Sudan, I say that is past mistake are repeated as the present, especially in terms of lack of consultation with the public. Then the other thing which I have in mind is how do you use sustainable development goals to support water resources management? How do we ensure that we have intergeneration equity? How do we have also take into account the climate change, because all of the GERD study has not taken into account the climate change. And finally, for Sudan, how do we improve the capacity of the country to deal with a natural disaster? These are some of the solutions which I think that will help in reducing the tension between Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia in terms of the GERD dam. We need to have a platform for diplomacy so that people will discuss the technical issues and non-technical issues and reach a solution. And also we need robust technical scientific platform to navigate complex technical issue. We need also greater deal of transparency. And this is all required, to avert water wars. And for people who think that water war did not occur, they did occur actually in the Nile Basin. And actually, in 1705, there was a water war between Sudan and Ethiopia. That is 1705. So if people think that is water war is something new, it's actually not new. Okay, thank you very much. I think I'm a little bit over time. But
That's okay. We have close to half an hour for Q&A. I want to start with the last bit. Can you tell us more about this 1705 water war between Ethiopia and Sudan? So it was a plan to divert the water.
Yeah.
How exactly?
Well, actually, what has happened is that Ethiopian were calling French engineer to help them to divert some of the water of the Blue Nile. I think it was near Lake Tana, to divert some of that water. And Sudanese are having none of it. So they actually fought a war just to prevent that from happening.
Very, very interesting.
It was actually, maybe it's not written in the main history books, but I have actually books here written in Arabic. So I was able to read them and translate that one. But water wars, they have happened. Because what has happened is that there was a French engineers going to Ethiopia, and then once the Sudanese knows about it, then they get rid of that French engineering delegation, and that is actually has started the war between the two. But again, the Badi Abushlok, which is king of Funj, and then their and actually the people of Benishangul are the descendant of these people. That is the area where the dam is constructed. So they have a war, they have that war, so that is the Ethiopian will not divert the water of the Blue Nile, and actually they have won the war. The king of Funj has won the war.
Very interesting. So thank you, Dr. Shamseldin. I'm going to open the floor for questions. So same as before, please use either the chat or the Q&A to ask your question. And while the first questions come, I want to also stop on your call out for a platform for water diplomacy. Again, this is what I've been saying since this morning. This is the work that we're doing with colleagues. Dr. Chisti, who's with us here, can speak to this regarding the work he did with Severe and USAID in the Mekong Delta, the transboundary water in cooperation network twin that I mentioned earlier. I'm going to put the address to their site in the chat again, is part of this, as is the TGR, another network of networks based at the University of New Mexico State. So I'm all with you on this, and I'll say it again. This is the beginning, this gathering is the beginning of a series of meetings where we're going to make sure the scientific knowledge is put in front of the right people in business and industry, but also government leaders on the national and global level to accelerate. So I'm with you 1,000%. Farouk, did you have something you wanted to ask Dr. Shamseldin?
Yes, thank you for the great overview, and also to Dr. Mohammed before. I have a question regarding any published study or on your part regarding the situation and the analysis that you presented of what can happen out of this dam. If you can share that, that would be great. I also wanted to share that we have satellite-based mapping of dams as well as part of our service to various parts of the globe. So we can consider collaboration in that direction, if you like.
Yeah. So I think the study that you are referring to, because many people in Sudan asked me to, what they call it, to figure out what will happen to the dam if it fails. So in this case, we assume that if the dam fails, we haven't focused on what mechanism which will cause it to fail. But however, in doing this study, we have followed the FEMA guidelines
Okay.
in terms of doing the dam break analysis. We have also made simplified assumption. We have also used very simplified DM or digital elevation model.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like a preliminary study to give people an idea about actually what will happen if the dam fail.
Okay.
This is one study that's conducted by myself. It's not published, but however, this is one example of a published study, and there are actually 2 or 3 published studies. And as you can see, that is, they all agree in the spatial extent, but however, they differ in terms of what is actually the water depth.
What is the water? Okay.
Yeah, because here you can see in some places here it go up to 22 meter, and here my study said that in some places it's greater than 10 meter. But however, whether it's 10 meter or 15 or 20 meter, I think the main point is that is if this dam fails, the impact will be very, very significant on Sudan.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if it is 10 meter or 15 meter, you are under the water anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. It will swamp most of the building. So I think that is the thing that is I think we need to focus on, is that is the impact will be very, very significant, because here there is a lot of cities here. Likewise, I think also the main point which I would like to mention is that is the result of any dam break has not been communicated to people. Again, people has not been consulted in terms of what is an acceptable risk for them. Say, like countries like United Kingdom, United States, they have a very, or Australia and some other countries, they will have, and also some European countries, we have a very structured way of evaluating the risk of the dam. But this is a transboundary river. The river is constructed in one country, is near the border. If it fails, it does not affect the country which built the dam. It will affect actually the downstream country. So this is a very peculiar situation. I'm aware that is, I can't remember the detail, but in one of the World Bank publication, there is a case between Switzerland and France, but they have dealt with it. But again, we need to bring successes from other countries and try to import it here or try to apply it to the Nile Basin. But people of Sudan has not been consulted about whether this big dam with this storage, are those risks acceptable to them or not. They have been living here in this area for millions of years. So they do have right to know. They should have a say in whether the risk is acceptable or not. But again, this is an area where they need to be an independent studies from the researcher. We have to get an independent body to conduct that study for us. But so far, the studies, this is very huge volume. The studies are showing that the impact will be significant. Likewise, what I will say, this dam is very close. Sudan has very low capacity to deal with emergency. Floods happens every year. And what you see in the media is just they will broadcast something in the media and say that is people should take precautions, but there is not actually real help from the government. So the Sudan capacity to deal with natural disaster is very, very poor. And definitely they cannot deal with the disaster of this scale if it happens.
How is the government responding to your findings? I mean, are they thinking of those findings as useful to carry out any negotiations?
Well, I think the government is aware of it. They are aware of it. And because as a result of the social media campaign that is we have conducted, the previous minister of irrigation in Hamdok, what do you call it, Hamdok time, has actually started looking into these issues. But however, the government changed and now there is a new minister, but everything is quiet. But this is an area where actually we need, people of Sudan need the international organization, international community to step in.
Yes. No, I from our side, I can share that we have done these dam break analysis using satellite and in situ data, and we can connect with you, through Frederick, and we can then work together, hopefully, to do these research studies at least. And hopefully that can help inform the public as well as the government to come into some sort of negotiation as to what's ahead.
I'll repeat what I said before, but you weren't with us yet, Dr. Shamseldin. I'm preparing a coalition of scientists and civic leaders to come either in person or virtually to the Global Environment Fund's plenary summit this summer in Vancouver. That's where Dr. Shisti is located, and the idea is to put these findings again in front of the right people at all levels. There will be, of course, UN agencies, there will be individual governments. Canada is playing a role with the G77 and the G30 within the G77 to further things along. So this will happen. We have a question from Atef Ahmed, who asks, from your point of view, how do we reach a fair and compromise solution to the Great Renaissance Dam crisis?
I think the fairest, sorry, I'm just going to, okay. I think the fairest thing we have to do, we have to be fair to everyone. Again, we have to complete all the studies. First of all, studies related to dam break analysis, socio-economic and environmental impact, okay? I think at this moment of time, the construction has to stop. This study has to be completed, and then everything will be on the table. And then people will discuss the way forward. Without scientific studies being completed, especially the effect on the downstream countries in terms of environmental and socio-economic and environmental impact, this has to be completed. And then people will discuss and figure out the way forward. Because without that one, things are going to get tense, even if people accept the reality now. In the future, there might be different reality. People might say, okay, this is the situation now, but in the future, they might resent that one. And as I said, say in Sudan, there is still resentment to the high dam of Aswan. This one here is actually much more critical than the high dam of Aswan, because this is going to affect the whole Sudan. So it's not only like a certain amount of people here, it's going to affect all the Nile reach. From here, the Blue Nile, and also the River Nile from Khartoum upwards.
Thank you. Is there any other question from our attendees? If so, please use the chat or the Q&A, and thank you for your attention. Those of you who've been here like me since this morning. And like I said before, because Dr. Shamseldin is in the future already, because he's on the other side of the world in Auckland, New Zealand, it is Wednesday, which is World Water Day. Actually, where you are, it is already officially World Water Day. So I want to acknowledge that. If there are no questions left, I will stop the recording now.